completely lost right now. To be honest, I'm not even sure what happened. With the power of Git, we can try and go back in time and look at which code is causing the problem. Let me backtrack a second. The problem is actually that the game is just lagging. It's really laggy. It just got way laggier all of a sudden, and I have no idea why. It's so laggy that if you have a ping of even over like 200, it's not even playable. Like bad. Super, super, like it doesn't even, it barely works. And some code change I did today caused that to happen. Now, the one thing I did that I think caused it, but I don't know how, I went from using just one floating point number to keep track of game time, and this is in an effort to fix netcode issues, to a discrete tick. Not like a literal tick, but like a game world tick. Like I have a separate integer for a discrete tick and a separate like subframe time floating point number. And somehow this change like quadrupled the performance problems. I don't know how. It was like 5 lines of changing. Right, so I'm like, okay, I need to drill down and figure out why it's so slow from this small change. And a tool in the programming world usually used to find out that kind of stuff, it's called a profiler. It looks a little something like this. This is a very nice profiler called Spall, made by a guy in the handmade community. And it's beautiful. It's so performant. Way more performant than my game right now. And it gives me a nice breakdown. Like this is a time, right? This is like 4.9 seconds. This is 5 seconds. Each frame should take 16 milliseconds. You can see here it's taking 44. It's like 3 times slower than it needs to be. It's like bad. And then this networking is like a lot of the time. So the bottom is the client and the top is the server, by the way. So like deserializing the data is pretty bad. It's 8 milliseconds. I could probably improve that speed. Although like that number is just so fishy. It almost doesn't make sense to me how it could possibly be that slow. Like computers are really fast. Half of the entire frame of the game, like 50% of all the processing, just deserializing the data received. Like how did this game work at all like in yesterday's release? If it's really this slow, I have no idea. So anyways, I spend majority of the time repredicting your inputs, and a majority of that time is just running the gameplay processing. Now the physics is actually not the slowdown here. I thought that it might be, and I was kind of worried about that. But like almost the entire length of processing time is just processing all the entities in the game, right? And then the vast majority of that time is just like the sun processing of the entity. Like here's a breakdown of like how much time different stuff is taking, and this like this just the sun processing is what's taking the majority of the time. Now, what that specifically is doing is like for each like box and like player, it looks at each sun in the game and then decides gravity and whether or not it should be damaged. So it's like, hey, it's like it is. We look at this distance. We use it to compute the gravitational force. It's like, okay, it's pulling in this much that way. Add that to the velocity, and then God forbid the player wanders too close to the sun. Computes the damage. And this is where all the time is being spent, I think, which is just weird. Like, why would the code change I did earlier? Remember, the root of this problem is the change I made today, because this wasn't a problem yesterday. I just want to remind you that there's only 8 suns in the game. Eight suns is causing this problem. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe I need to just I have to think that I messed up my testing of like whether or not the old build from yesterday also has this slow problem. But like it just doesn't. I don't know. I'm so lost right now. And another problem is, right? So originally the code change that caused this slowdown was very tiny. But now that I added all this profiling shit to visualize it, the code change is massive. And so now it would be like finding a needle in a haystack, trying to figure out like where in the code is the specific change that might be causing the slowdown. It's fruitless. And so I kind of chased myself into a corner here. I guess I'll update you guys more tomorrow. Make sure to like and subscribe, and you can play the game for free by clicking the link in the description.